welcome to episode 25 of Last Turn. Evan and I, Bart, are joining you from the catacombs.
It's cold in here.
It is cold in here. It's cold on the East Coast, and I guess in this case that encompasses the catacombs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they do a very good job, insulating it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be cold anywhere because it's underground and, there's not a lot of sunlight down there.
It's probably why they have those candles, just because their heads get cold.
That's a really good, lore theory.
I mean, it's obviously true.
Yeah, I guess, Ben Brode himself, the Warcraft lore expert, probably confirmed that somewhere.
I'm sure they would agree.
So there's something down here in the catacombs that doesn't belong.
Yeah, he's been ransacking.
This is not the first place that he's ransacked, and it actually will be his last place.
That's a good point.
Um,
This is the end of his standard ransacking, at least.
Yeah, and we are, of course, talking about patches.
I'm in charge now.
So, we've heard a lot about this minion for really its entire stay in standard, or pretty much since it's been printed just in all formats. This card has had a tremendous impact. It is perhaps one of the most widely played cards in Hearthstone.
Yeah, that's definitely top 5, right?
It's got to be top 5. I mean, when we think about powerful neutral minions in history, a lot of us will think about Ragnaros and Sylvanas, two cards that were rotated to Hall of Fame. Some of us will think about Dr. Boom or Piloted Treader or Sludge Belcher or Mad Scientist. I think Patches is better than all of those cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes hard to compare, but it's probably more played than all of them.
Yeah, I mean, when I say better, that's a loaded term, right? That can mean any number of things. But I think that in terms of its your desire, given that you're playing any deck, what is the desirability of Patches? I think that value is higher on average for Patches than other cards, which is something like how often it's played and how good it is in the deck that it's played.
That sounds about right. I mean, it basically not only gives you this huge edge, but it's made a bunch of unplayable cards playable. Its impact is difficult to measure because there's the individual value of Patches, and then also how it's made other cards playable and other strategies unplayable.
Yeah, totally. So we actually wanted to discuss a bunch of things about Patches today. That's ultimately where we're going to start, is roughly what is Patches' impact, why is it impactful, what has it been, what has it done. But we also wanted to cover some other stuff too, like how do you put it into your deck, what kinds of decks do you want to play it in, and how do you beat it. So I think starting at why it's been so impactful and just sort of giving a bit of a historical overview is a really good place to start. How do you feel, Evan?
That sounds great. I think it's pretty humble beginning. It wasn't that appreciated from the get-go.
Yeah, I think it was so I mean, when Mean Streets came in, Pirate Warrior was like a fringe deck in the previous expansion, and it was around and kind of knocking around some mid-range shaman decks that they drew slowly, but it wasn't a super mainstay. And I think when people saw Patches, they realized, wow, this slots right into this existing deck so well. It just gives them, a play that works with almost all their cards, and people started playing Patches in Pirate Warrior.
And I think even still, even after he started showing up in that deck and Pirate Warrior became the deck, in addition to Bloodsail Cultist, there were other cards that made it really, really strong.
Oh, Small Time Buccaneer.
Yeah, Small Time Buccaneer, which needed to be nerfed. That card was ridiculous.
Yeah.
They didn't even immediately play South Sea Captain.
Totally.
I do remember one day doing the math on it, though, and realizing that he's just 3 mana for 5 power and 5 health, 2 of which has charge.
It's pretty advanced calculus there.
It obliterates. Thank you. It obliterates King Mukla. It's just unreal.
Yeah.
And you could, and you really don't need to be doing anything else necessarily. You can put that in any deck. That's been showing up in a ton of Priest decks. I think it's been in Dragon Priest.
Yep.
All the time. Lately.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. So I think the humble beginning is something that I had sort of forgotten about since the card is so prevalent now. But yeah, you're right. In the beginning, South Sea Captain didn't really see the light of day. I remember in the early Pirate Warrior builds, I'd see people playing that card and think oh, they're bad. Like they're just
Hmm.
they built a suboptimal build of this deck. And maybe at the time, because you had an additional strong one drop, you didn't need that card. But it's hard to imagine thinking that same thing in, say, Ungoro's Pirate Warrior deck, where South Sea Captain was just like, it was part of the core. You would never cut that card.
Yeah, and it's largely because of just having a free minion that's a pirate,
Totally.
and that's Patches, and that was a big reason why Pirate Warrior was so devastating um, for a pretty large period of time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think Patches is really in any other decks for a while though.
Actually, so it was in the mid-range shaman deck, the aggro shaman decks that came around.
Yeah,
So, but these were decks that like initially they just looked like the mid-range shaman decks from the previous expansion, except people realized, wow, if you run Small Time Buccaneer in here with Spirit Claws, it's just like really stupid.
right.
And then people realize like, well, if you're running Small Time Buccaneer, you might as well get a 1/1 and thin your deck out a little bit. And so people did run patches in that deck, and aggro shaman became an incredibly oppressive force. I remember riding that deck to Legend. It was like free. It
I
was just
remember
such a
that
strong
now
deck.
too.
Yeah,
I'd completely forgotten about that.
yeah, that was extremely powerful. So I mean, people were just slamming aggro shaman and pirate warrior into each other, and that was what the early stages of those metagames looked like. People weren't really doing too much Jade stuff or anything else.
It was all too slow.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, um, at the time, patches is actually pretty egregious, like in the same format as Totem Golem. Like if you just and
Hmm.
Small Time Buccaneer. If you just think about that for a second, like you had Tunnel Trog, Small Time Buccaneer, Patches, Totem Golem, like Spirit Claws at 1 mana. That that just sounds unbeatable. I can't even imagine that in the current metagame.
It's pretty gross. That's why I
Um,
had to do something about it.
yeah, absolutely. They had to do a bunch of things about it. I think that deck also ran deckhands.
Yeah, it would at least run one, but I'm pretty sure most lists I'm certain I ran two because it was
Yeah,
so good with that flame tongue totem.
yep, definitely. Flame Tongue Totem made that card really good. But that's another card that like didn't really see too much play in a lot of decks. Is South Sea Deckhand, but
Hmm.
these days sees play in pretty much any aggro deck that has a weapon in it. You want to play that card as your pirate one drop of choice.
Yeah, it allows you to immediately deal 3 extra damage, which is that's basically the tempo that you need. There's potentially going to be really big things coming out fast, and if you can't kill them, you're going to lose.
Yep.
So everybody's gotten better and better at like having this early tempo. So it's been more necessary to run deckhands and patches to keep up. This because other people will be running patches too.
Yeah. So I heard so regarding deckhands specifically, so all any discussion about a pirate or using a particular pirate over another pirate is ultimately a discussion of patches. The underscore of this is that you're running these pirates because you have patches in the deck, and getting additional 1/1 with charge on top of whatever stats you paid for is going to be such a huge tempo advantage, at times doubling the value you're getting per mana, like on turn one. So, um, I remember hearing about South Sea Deckhand, a discussion of Candle Shot. So this is
Hmm.
another card that ultimately is better because Patches exists. Um,
Right.
Candle Shot is good and it's desirable in an aggressive hunter deck because it lets you run Deckhand instead of Bloodsail Corsair. And Deckhand can do a little bit more. It's more flexible. It's more damage. It's better in a face strategy. So that makes Candle Shot a card that you want to run. Um,
Right.
just because you can play deckhand. So ultimately, the impact of patches is like that's like 2 levels removed from patches. We're now, and patches is still impacting how good another card is. I mean, a lot of cards are like that. It's a card game. It's like complicated. There's a lot of interactions, but patches' impact has been huge in terms of what decks are good.
Yep. It's the extra tempo was really significant. Then in Pirate Warrior, in particular, having a pirate out for Bloodsail Cultist, just like the fact that you have one more pirate, like that was super relevant.
Yeah,
And he
definitely.
did that, and he was like, "Here I am. I'm a pirate. I'm being a pirate."
Yeah,
And you're like, "Thanks, dude. That's exactly what I needed." And you just have one more thing than the opponent can deal with because it's completely unfair. You
right,
got it for free, so who can blame them for not having the removal? And then you get to pump your 2 mana Fiery War Axe.
right.
So
Yeah.
that was pretty gross. And then eventually there was um, Ungoro
Yep.
with the caverns below. You want to play Rogue. You probably want to play some pirates and patches,
Oh yeah, I mean, especially in that deck where you can so many, deckhand has charge, and that later can mean just pushing 5 to face from hand.
which can be in yeah, especially also patches after you complete the quest.
Right.
So you can use patches early to give you tempo, or after you complete the quest, use a surprise 5/5 charge that you can return to your hand. It's just like it was ridiculously good in that deck,
Yeah. And actually,
and had nothing to do with like a pirate theme or like it just having 1/1 charges wasn't so good in that deck.
yeah, I mean, most decks that I think like one of the many decks that has run patches over the years has had a pirate theme, and that's Pirate Warrior, which is actually just a weapon theme.
Right.
And all of the other decks just don't really have a pirate theme at all. They're just running pirates because and other cards that have been synergized with pirates because of patches, um, which is like pretty dumb. I mean, I think that's ultimately like toxic when you have
Yeah.
those kinds of neutrals that are just so prevalent. But that's another discussion. Uh,
Every now and then there'd be like a rogue deck that also like had like Naga Corsair and South Sea Captains.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But
It's a little piratey.
those decks like wouldn't even think of running those cards if it wasn't for patches.
No, definitely not. Never. Never ever.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, the biggest impact, I guess, of patches is that there's like this whole core of basic and classic pirate cards that see play because of patches. Actually, I think they're all classic and none of them are basic. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I
not,
believe it.
I think that it doesn't really matter. So patches made a whole swath of cards playable and desirable to put in your deck, and even sort of created a ranking among these different types of cards. Like you'd rather play deckhand over Corsair, but you'd be happy to play Corsair if you don't have access to it because you're playing a non-weapon class like Druid or something. So it made a lot of other cards playable, but it also made certain types of cards not very playable. For example, imagine a 3/1, just a minion whose stat line was 3/1, like Wolf Rider. You just can't play that kind of card when patches exist.
Nope. You're never getting a second attack out of Wolf Rider with patches being legal.
Right, right. Or even, Cavern Shiny Finder, a card that digs a weapon out of your deck and adds it to your hand in Rogue. So, I mean, that Kingsbane Rogue plays that, which is already sort of a silly deck, but the minion on its own is pretty horrendous right now because of patches.
Yeah, it could have at least like been like functional in some way, but patches.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even as a 1/2, it'd probably be better than a 3/1.
And then I
Um,
think even certain 2/1s like Loot Hoarder and um, Shimmering something, the 2/1 Elemental and Mage.
oh, Shimmering Tempest.
Yeah, like cards like that get worse. Even oh yeah, there's the new 3/1 in Druid, Greedy Sprite.
Greedy Sprite, right. Yeah,
Definitely worse with patches around.
yeah, I mean, if Patches wasn't around, that card would be a lot better. I mean, there's other forces that can deal with it. There's still Nizal's First Mate, there's still like Rogue, but those cards would, Rogue, I think right now in the way it looks would be a lot worse if Patches didn't exist, and people probably wouldn't play Nizal's First Mate if Patches didn't exist. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think you might have to if you're gonna still be using upgrades and stuff.
I mean, yeah, if you're trying to play Pirate Warrior, but like when I say people wouldn't play it, I mean that deck wouldn't be that prevalent because it wouldn't be that good. I mean, it's not even really good right now, and Patches does exist. Um, so Patches has impacted a lot. Patches has made a lot of cards like good that otherwise would not have been. But like you said, also some 2/1s. These are like 2/1 is a stat line you expect at 1 mana and sometimes 2, but if you are paying 2 mana for that, you're usually getting like a pretty sweet Battle Cry or Death Rattle. but I think that patches makes it so that you need like more than that.
Yeah, it's less frequently that that's what you want, and then you get like really excited about a 1/2 or something like that,
Yeah,
like Bloodsail Corsair,
right. Or
um,
Firefly.
or Firefly, and those are both in another deck that basically just like has a huge love for patches and really relies on patches, which is Token Druid.
Yep.
Like that deck wouldn't be nearly as good without patches because you're trying to get as many minions out for as little mana as possible, and then buff them, and then attack with them. And
Right.
patches is free, and he attacks immediately. So those are all the qualities you were looking for. So that deck just ran like Bloodsail Corsair,
Yep.
because that was like you draw Bloodsail Corsair, and you are very excited. And that's like really weird to say because the card is pretty mediocre on its own. But because of patches, it's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, like, just to get an idea of how good it is, think about an effect that only some classes have access to. I think, like, Druid has this in Wild, Hunter has it in Standard, and Paladin has it in Standard, and that's paying 1 mana for 2/1/1 minions. So
Hmm.
that is an effect that is, like, strong. Lost in the Jungle is a strong card that I think has been pretty underplayed because of patches, spoilers. Alley Cat is another card that is incredibly good. I think that card's really strong, underplayed because of something like patches. And in the past, what was that other one? The Druid one where you can choose to do Living Roots.
Living Roots, yeah.
Yeah, I mean Living Roots is insane, and that card saw a ton of play in its heyday. Um, and it still sees play in Wild in token type decks. So
Great card.
those cards, so only some classes get access to that effect. 1 mana for 2/1/1 minions. Patches gives that to every class, but better with Bloodsail Corsair, because not only are you getting a 1/2 and a 1/1 for 1 mana, your 1/1 has charge.
It's a friggin' amazing deal.
It's unbelievable. It's worth so much more than 1 mana. And that's ultimately why Patches is so good. It's just that, like, if somebody else is playing Patches on turn 1 and you're playing something that isn't Patches on turn 1, you're probably not as good off as they are, and because of the tempo gain that they got, on average, they're going to beat you. So you just have to run it in order to, match their tempo gain.
Yeah, it's easy to underestimate just 1/1 charge, but when you're getting it for free, that allows you to guarantee this edge at the beginning that you can sort of then ride and make the advantage bigger. If
Right,
you can sort of like exponentiate it or accelerate it and make it greater every turn, the further ahead you are
right.
and the less opportunity you give them. So it's really huge. And then so many decks have found these unique ways to get extra out of them, like the Quest Rogue deck or Token Druid. Even like the Pirate Warrior, Bloodsail Cultist just digs
Any
the
deck
one
running
one.
Corridor Creeper?
Yeah, Corridor Creeper is just like a new guy on the block. Is just like, hey, Patches, who's in
Right.
charge around here?
Yeah, I mean that was a subject of discussion pretty early in the metagame. Reynad made a video about that, and he said that like Corridor Creeper is going to have a massive impact on the metagame, and it's going to be dominant, and that's really because of patches, and patches is the problem here. And I think that was like it was pretty early that analysis was given, and it's not
Hmm.
far off from the truth.
You know, he summed it up pretty well. He even had some deck lists, and I know he had a Paladin one. I'm sure it's very much like the one that has been obliterating people lately.
Yep, definitely. I mean, there was a patches list for I think he gave one for every class but priest. He might have given a dragon priest build that has patches. I don't remember, but there is a priest deck now running patches. So
Yep.
it's just conceivable to run this card in every class, and that's really insane when you have something like patches and what that card's flavor is, and ultimately what kinds of decks it's supposed to help out. That's being run by Cabal classes, by the casters. That's bizarre. Like,
I mean, it's kind of cool and kind of fun, but it is also oppressive and it gets annoying.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I like breaking the color pie in, like, to use Magic terms, like going outside of a class's normal identity and doing something that the class isn't really meant to do. That's fun. And I think a lot of
Hmm.
people like doing that in games in general. That gives like a certain type of player a lot of joy. And Patches lets you run a minion based deck in basically any class. But like it doesn't feel, because it's so good, it doesn't feel like you're sort of subverting the game's soft limitations on you. It feels like you're just playing the best cards available and winning.
Yeah, it just feels like Regeki or Gemini Elf or something.
Right.
It's just like vanilla win card,
Yes.
and that's not really flavorful.
Right. It's just stronger than all the other things you can be doing, and because of that, you just win more games. It's just this card has had a huge impact on the game. So how do you play
Well, you put it in your deck.
it? That's really it.
That's the main thing. And really, it actually comes down to what you can get out of the other pirates, because you
That is
will
true.
have to. That's really the one deck building constraint that Patches gives you, which is you got to run some pirates.
Yeah,
Probably more than one. But plenty of decks have run just two, two
totally.
copies of the same pirate and done really well. And it's kind of cool that you can sort of pick, like, oh, do I want to fill my 1-drop? Do I want to fill my 3-drop? Patches is very forgiving.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's like it's kind of silly to even discuss like how to put this card in your deck. We all know, but ultimately, you have three options, right? We talked about all of them. We have Bloodseal Corsair, Southsea Deckhand, Southsea Captain. Those are your options in neutral. If you're playing a class that doesn't have access to another pirate like Swashbuckler and Rogue, then you're going to be playing probably at least one playset or two playsets from this group. If you have weapons in your deck, you're probably running Deckhand and Captain because those two cards work well together.
Hmm.
And they both work really well with Patches. And if you don't have access to weapons, you might be playing just Bloodseal Corsair if you're super low to the ground, like Aggro Druid. Although
Hmm.
Aggro Druid might even run Captain now. I don't even know.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, Captain's just so good. Unless your 3-drop slot's really, really clogged, you want to run Captain. Because it's like you said, I mean, I hadn't even thought of King Mukla, but this is like King Mukla has a downside, 3 mana 5/5 with a downside. Southsea Captain's like 3 mana 5/5 with an upside.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's just like a 3 mana 5/5 that has like 2/5 of a Divine Shield on it.
Yeah, and
Um,
like if you can kill like something with your patches and it lives, like you just that's an amazing feeling.
it's gross. It's a tempo swing. I mean, so much about this game is just making sure that you can stick them like you control the board enough that your opponent can't kill your minion on board, which means they have to spend a card from their hand or something to deal with your minion. And if you do that enough times, you get to attack your opponent's face more than they get to attack your face, and you win the game. And that's why Patches is so good, because it sort of can give you that turn that you need to snowball like that. Southsea Captain does the same thing, but a 2/2 is a lot chunkier than a 1/1, and a 2/2 will be able to kill a lot more things.
Yep, you can immediately kill things to health. Um, and if you happen to get like duplicates of South Sea Captain, it's like can be even better. So there's a couple advantages to it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and you had just mentioned Swashbuckler.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be running that card, the captain's also more relevant. Though, like, just another impact of Patches, how much better is Rogue in general?
Oh,
Because Swashbuckler is a pirate and Patches exists.
yeah, and I
Like,
mean
once again, like, that is just insane.
it can play deckhand like for free because it
And
has
yeah, also
insane weapon.
Deckhand, right? The Deckhand just also slots right in with your hero power. You don't need to
Yeah.
do any deck editing to just run that card and have it be really good.
Right.
So yeah, Rogue is definitely a great deck to be running your patches in.
And actually,
Um,
because Patches exists, the Rogue hero power gets better because it has something it can kill that matters a lot.
yep, that's just one more way that Rogue is better.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
that's been that's been really amazing in the past two expansions. Just playing the Tempo Rogue deck and like so often on turn two, I'm like, I get to hero power. That's so good. I get a 1/2 weapon on turn two. That's unbelievable.
yeah,
I didn't have to spend a card on this. It's basically just 2 mana, equip a 1/2 weapon, draw a card. That's basically what it is. Your hero power. It's so good.
that's because it lets you kill patches
Yeah, it just
and Southsea deckhands.
yeah. So Patches has been Patches has just been insane. And yeah, Rogue has benefited tremendously from the existence of Patches. I think it took a little while, but up until the round of nerfs they did in KFT, I think that the aggressive decks that were around were just way faster than Tempo Rogue could be.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little bit like chunkier and lower to the ground and doing much more broken things much faster. Whereas Tempo Rogue is like really just a dedicated mid-range deck that can swing the board against something that's sort of playing minions kind of fairly. But Pirate Warrior and Murloc Paladin, in their heyday, were not interested, or Innervate Token Druid, were not interested in doing anything like playing minions fairly.
No, not at all.
I
So
mean,
so yeah, Pirate Warrior was killing whatever they needed for free with gigantic weapons from like turn 2 and on.
right?
The Rogue deck only really does that with like Vile Spine Slayer, like if you're lucky turn 5. And
Yeah,
then Token Druid just like beats you on turn 1 with Vicious Fledgling. So
right.
there were a lot of reasons why that wasn't good enough, but um, it's definitely gas now.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
part of that is because other decks are playing patches now, so that makes the hero better.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, Tempo Rogue has been Tempo Rogue sort of left over from the previous metagame, but I think the deck had a lot of flex slots in it because there just like weren't there was a lot of variance in the Tempo Rogue builds, and I think that's because there weren't like enough good cards for the deck. So your last few slots were like actually just mediocre cards.
hmm
And like Prince Valinar or like Chain Gang is actually awesome in the deck with Kelesith and stuff. But these days it got like Corridor Creeper, it has Elven Minstrel. It got a lot from the expansion, and that deck has been incredibly strong. I think also in part to its really amazing matchup against Aggro Paladin, another deck that's brought to you by Patches.
Yep. Once again, just run all the reasonable weapons. Then now you can put Sassy Deck on your deck, and you can use patches. You got there.
Yep.
We did it.
Yeah, I mean that's basically when you want to answer the question of like which decks are you playing Patches in, it's ultimately any deck that has minions in it. So
Yeah, and another card actually that is good with minions in your deck, and definitely is better because of patches, and makes patches better as Keleseth.
yeah, that's true.
Like because patches is just free minion from your deck, and that's what Keleseth increases. So he sort of um, increase your odds of getting like some value out of him like immediately.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to bring up when you were talking about Quest Rogue, how sometimes you get a surprise 5/5 patches. With Kelesith, you can get a surprise 3/3 patches, or more if you're just like a Luxac. But there are tons of times where I've held my Swashbuckler because I'm going to turn 2 Kelesith and turn 3 Captain. And that's won me a lot of games. I mean, we're talking about Sassy Captain being amazing when you get a 3/3 and a 2/2 with charge. If you get a 3/3 with charge, that can like nothing is tangoing with that on turn 2. Nothing's like trading with it favorably on turn 3 rather. Nothing's trading with it favorably. So you're definitely trading and killing whatever you attack, or you're trading up with something because you're just going to get more value than they get.
And you're also getting a 3/3.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and that's just as other than that. There's the captain itself, which is just a chunky guy. So it does make Kelesith better, and also I think Kelesith has such a home in a lot of decks, but its home in Rogue is so fitting because of how good the Rogue hero power is.
Mm-hmm.
Where like the fact that you're an aggro deck with no turn 2 plays like just doesn't matter because your hero power is like better than all of them anyway.
Yeah. Plus, there's the pirates we mentioned. None of them cost 2. Corsair, Deckhand,
It's true.
Captain.
Yep. There's no pirates that you really miss playing that are 2 mana.
So there's been Prince Keleseth, Razakis, Priest that would
Yeah,
run patches and Deckhand and Corsair.
right.
Sometimes, yeah, and Corsair.
Yep. That was a silly deck that popped up at the end of the Frozen Throne metagame.
It
But
was
it's
really
actually,
fun.
yeah, I played it a bunch too. It is fun. It's like, it's nice. It sort of subverts the idea of the whole Razakis deck and also Priest Identity. So that was like pretty cool. Brought to you by Patches. But ultimately, Dragon Priest now, which has been historically sort of like an aggro control deck, is playing Patches and is a lot more like a mid range deck now.
Yeah, it's just going all in
Yeah,
and
it's
and taking the board by being having the biggest stuff.
yeah.
Things like Innervate and Fiery War Axe getting nerfed definitely help with that.
Yeah, that had a really big impact on the game. Um, Fiery War Axe in particular, taking Pirate Warrior out, just like that. It wasn't totally obvious to me until that nerf how much of an impact that deck had on the game. But it really does, it really did like put a lot of pressure on decks to be built in a certain way.
Hmm.
Otherwise, Pirate Warrior, if you just give them 2 turns without interacting with them, they just like crush you.
Yeah,
In part because of patches, but also because the rest of the deck was so good.
yeah. Fire War Axe just was too much of removal too
Yeah,
quickly,
or damage.
and even it it really hurt Control Warrior too. I mean, Pirate Warrior is still basically the best warrior deck. There's no. I was trying to make some kind of Control Warrior deck recently, and like I need something to kill things that are inexpensive and early, and I'm like looking like there's just nothing. There's no 2 mana card that deals with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even an Argent Lance would be awesome.
Yeah, I would take that.
Yeah, that would do the trick. I mean, that'd be fine in Pirate Warrior, honestly. But alas.
Alas.
Yeah, I mean, that's not nothing of value lost. I don't think anyone's super upset about that. Um, yeah, I mean, patches just kind of goes anywhere. That's what's so insane about it is you really can run it in any class that has minions that can push damage, and the cards you need to run to make patches good are like they don't cost all that much. They're just a couple neutral pirates. So its ubiquity is just a testament to that, of how little it costs to put your deck and how little deck building constraints it puts on you, and ultimately all like the only thing that you need for this to synergize with your deck is to be able to capitalize on the tempo, which like most decks in Hearthstone can do.
Yep, and it's can also be used defensively, which is amazing. You can use the damage to just kill something that's a threat.
Yes.
So it's not even that, oh, I need to be like a face deck. It's like you said, just any kind of aggressive tempo deck. You can definitely just be mid range and not be face, and still just use it to take out your opponent's guy and have your own guy, and be like, what now?
Yep. Yeah, totally. That's been I mean there are so many games where like in within the opening first turn on both sides like patches are just ramming into another patches or something, or like, a 1/1 pirate, or like something like that. It's pretty often just being used to match somebody else's patches to kill something, or to like kill their deckhand if they played on turn 1 or something.
Yeah, just patches, cleaning up patches.
Yep, yeah, it's not about the damage really. It's kind of about the tempo game. And that's the way you get the tempo gain is by trading up with it. And like a surprise 1/1 charge it's a surprise, it's like a removal spell, a small one, but it's a removal spell. And you just attach that to a reasonably statted minion and you have something really efficient.
And it's not random in any way. You get to consistently do it. That also takes out of your deck. You're not going to draw it. And even if you do draw it, you pretty much always play it and attack with it immediately, and it is very often used to trade.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why Galaka Crawler isn't always like the best answers to how to beat it. Like you can use it to kill the thing they use to summon the patches, but if that's a Southsea deckhand, then that is easily gone as well.
Right.
But there's very often times where the pirates are gone by the time you draw your Galaka Crawler. You don't. It's not a high rate of having it in your opening hand.
Yeah. Whereas there are probably more pirates in the deck than there are Galaka crawlers in your deck than there are Galaka crawlers in your opponent's deck. So you're just gonna probably have a pirate out and be able to fight them with it. Very strong. So I think that's a good segue actually into how to beat it. Galaka Crawler has had some success, but just not enough, really.
Yeah, because it's not. You can't. You don't. You'll just be losing the pirates and not have it in your hand.
Yeah, and I think that the like a lot of the times the way you want to beat it is actually just by playing it. And Galaka Crawler is kind of best in decks that would be happy getting a 2 mana 2/3, and those are decks that are going to be happy playing patches. So I think like sometimes they run Galaka Crawlers as a meta call, but it's like such a dead draw against Priest, for example, or like Q Block, or just other non-patches decks which do exist. That it's kind of a liability to run in your deck just to give you an edge against all the patches decks when you could instead play another card that can probably tango with patches because it's a minion and actually advances your game plan against non-patches decks a little better.
Yeah, ultimately, maybe one of the better answers would be Candle Shot. It's good against patches.
Yeah, totally. Something like Candle Shot, Firefly is a card that we've seen a lot of. That was on both of our top 5 list for Ungoro cards. Um, I think it's one of the best cards in Ungoro still.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And it's part of the reason it's so amazing is because of patches and just X1s in general, and even has some resistance against the Rogue Hero Power or Candle Shot these days. So it's that card does a pretty good job. Just 1/2s in general, having slightly more defensive leaning minions, um, of which there are many, and a lot of good 1-drops are like that. That's another reason why I think Bloodsail Corsair is actually playable, is because patches is a 1/1 and you can live in opponent's patches with it.
Yeah, it not only gets yours, but it's good against theirs.
Yeah.
Taunt minions can be pretty good. Like, I think it's fair to say like Tar Creeper or even Stonehill Defender are good against patches.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think Tar Creeper is actually awesome because pretty much any flavor of patches folds to Tar Creeper, even the captain.
Even the Keleseth Captain.
Yeah, even the Keleseth captain is still like trading the same number of minions or losing patches in another card in some way.
Not the triple Keleseth Captain, though. But
No,
you
but
probably should scoop that one.
yeah, right. Right. Why are you casting a 3-mana spell and not playing the next game? Um,
That's basically the Cavern of Souls.
yeah,
It'd be a 5/5.
yeah. It's not. Oh, you mean the Caverns Below, not Caverns Souls?
Yeah. What is
Yeah,
that? Is that a magic card?
that's a magic card. Yeah, it lets you. Not the first time. So that was actually very confusing because Cavern of Souls is a tribal synergy land.
Oh
You
yeah,
like
and you would be able to play patches with it and be like
right because it's
uncounterable.
pirate. It would be uncounterable and it would produce mana of any color if you named pirates with it. So I was like very confused when you said that. But
The kobolds who got me all confused. I've been spelunking too long, getting my caverns mixed up.
yeah, I mean even especially because the current Magic sets right now are pirate themed. Actually, they're pirates and dinosaur themed, which is like Ungoro. But what are you gonna do? Um, anyway, yeah, I mean playing patches is the best way to beat patches. Really, there's like
That's another great way.
yeah, it's just you're not gonna beat it with 1-for-1 removal. You're not trying to like. I mean, actually, you kind of would run Mortal Coil to hit a patches, and you'd be fine with that. But it's not efficient to actually spend whole cards to beat it, which is why running patches is such a good way to beat patches because you don't have to spend a whole card to beat patches if you get patches.
Yeah, you just spend patches.
Right? Yeah, you spend nothing. So that's kind of that loops back to the beginning. It's why is patches so impactful? It's this card that to beat it you want to run it, and that means that everyone ends up running the card, and that just like puts massive warping effects on the types of decks that see play.
And that's just what happens when a card's really, really strong. I mean, that was what happened with Skullclamp. Once
Yeah, totally.
Skullclamp came out, eventually every deck just had to run 4 of it. It's too good.
Yeah, and I mean like or early Yu-Gi-Oh, all the decks look the same because there was just a core of close to 40 cards that you wanted to be playing because they were all so good. And like super early Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, and that makes
Yeah.
everything pretty boring.
Yeah, ultimately it does. I mean patches is like it's something I won't miss when it leaves, which is, ways from now. It's kind of silly to say that in our sort of like second episode of an early metagame. But I'll be pretty pleased when that card is gone.
Yeah, because the main impact that he has is the early tempo is more critical, and there's more
Yeah,
happening in turns 1 through 3, and there's more at stake, and you have to be more prepared to get a free minion in addition to whatever else they did off the board. Um, or like with Token Druid, like there could be potentially something much bigger than just a 1/1 you have to deal with. Um, and so that makes your options as far as a slower deck more limited.
yeah, Yeah, you have a lot more you have a lot more to do as a slower deck in a field with patches in it. You have a lot more fears because there's just such strong plays available in what are going to be your weakest turns, the first few.
Yeah, and
And
if it makes you want to like get wild pyromancers and spirit lashes, and you're just changing your deck around um, because of this card. Or
yep,
maybe you just wind up playing it like some of the priest decks.
right. Yeah, or like zoo type decks or even secret mages and dragon priests.
There have definitely been a good deal of slower, more expensive, but cool cards that have come out over the past, like, since patches came out, that I think have been less playable because of him. So that's another
Yeah,
reason I'm looking forward to his departure, is
for sure.
seeing how those cards can fare without that pressure coming out on turn one.
Mm. Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I think it's basically what you just said. There's been a lot of really cool slow cards that are just far too slow because the decks you need to build or the decks you can build in order to support those cards just can't exist in a world with patches.
Yeah, there's too much. They get too far ahead too quickly, and they get that
Yeah, and
snowball
that's
rolling
that's
too fast.
definitely Hearthstone's a very snowbally game. That's kind of what tempo is all about. That when people talk about tempo, ultimately you're trying to get tempo so you can snowball it and turn that 1/1 patches into a 5/5 over your opponent or something. Um, that's why Firelance Portal's so good. Uh, but yeah, those kinds of slow cards just can't exist in a world with patches because patches is also pressure, it's damage, and like in addition to tempo gains, it's threatening. It itself can push damage, or it can help you get something out that's going to push damage and just speed the game up. So slow paladin cards are hard to play.
Hmm.
You know, Slow mage cards have been hard to play. Actually, kind of surprisingly, mage has always been a control type deck, but these days it's more of a tempo deck.
Yeah, that deck is getting things done really fast. That's a blisteringly quick deck.
Secret mage,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then that it's actually kind of amazing that Kavalaki is good enough with patches around, but there's Alaneth.
Yeah, I think that's why. I remember one of the first decks I made it was just Secret Mage and I replaced a card in it with Alaneth and I forgot which card it was, but like one thing as I was playing it more and I was doing like okay, I was thinking, man, what I need is like ways to dump my hand after I play Alaneth and Cabal Lackey is and Corridor Creeper just both awesome answers to that need.
Yeah, another corridor creeper deck. I mean, that that card will still probably be getting played, but not nearly as much once matches is
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, I think so too. So I wanted to try it out in J Druid, actually.
Yeah,
I
that
feel
that could be good. I'm pretty sure that the minion that you kill will count if you kill a minion with ultimate infestation.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, it will. Oh, I see. I feel like you draw into the corridor creeper. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't cast Ultimate Infestation since Catacombs came out. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
um,
I don't think I have either, but I've seen someone ultimate infestation into like arcane tyrant. So I
sure.
guess that might be different, but I've seen a couple instances with ultimate infestation, and it seems to be very favorable to the
Yeah,
person casting it.
sure.
So I would bet that it'll be 6 mana. And then if you can trade on board after you play it, you might even be able to play it immediately after you play
Yep,
Ultimate
definitely.
Infestation.
Yeah, yeah. It should be interesting to try. Because I mean, the Arcane Tyrant is just another free minion that deck can get. If you stuff like Corridor Creeper in there, it could be I don't know, just a lot of free minions, maybe even Kun. But I don't have that card,
Yeah, I
so
still haven't crafted it. What is he gonna be leaving?
I think so.
Huh.
I think he's like Mean Streets.
Well, I won't miss him.
Yeah, or not. I don't know. I think he's gone. And that's part of the reason why I haven't crafted him. If he was on Goro, I'd like snap craft him.
He is definitely good, and he was more interesting with Aviana though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not very interesting right now. It's kind of just a free 7/7.
Though, well,
So
actually, so I saw someone using it's probably dog using jungle giants, and after you make all the minions in your deck free with Barnabas, Kun gets really good.
Oh, that's so silly. It just lets you. Oh yeah, I saw the clip where he UI'd twice in the same turn.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I remember that one.
So that's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
that's pretty silly. Yeah, I've actually seen a couple Jungle Giants decks. I saw that on the Legend Ladder last season for the first time,
Hmm.
and I think I beat it easily, and I have every time I've encountered it. But it was still pretty cool to see.
It's pretty funny. It's like almost there. It was definitely better with 2 mana Innervate.
Yeah, I mean that card that had such a huge impact. I mean, I think it's actually surprising to me that Aggro Druid is still around in any form. Because every time I played
Mm.
that deck, probably more than I have any other individual Hearthstone deck,
Mm.
and Innervate just sounded so. It just felt so like necessary. Like you wanted to hard mulligan for it, and when you had it, those games felt free.
And that's basically what the deck did. Just try to have as
Yep,
many free games as possible. I think the one thing that
definitely.
kind of keeps it around is just it's still able to really take advantage of like a slower deck and make a swarm that
Yeah,
can't be beaten, and it winds up running Galaka Crawler, and Patches has been around. And
yep,
so there's always like a target for one of the cards that you're gonna wind up playing. Um,
yeah. And it has some legitimately great cards. Sort of the Storm and Crypt Lord are both excellent.
yeah, this is true,
So,
and they're really
so
good against
actually,
Patches.
yeah, they're really good against patches, and actually they're really good against aggro paladin. So one topic I wanted to cover this week was aggro paladin. Actually, just kind of talk about it
Hmm.
and what happened to it. So aggro paladin's been pretty dominant in the metagame. Since Cobalt came out, it got Call to Arms, which is an amazing tool for sort of the middle of the game.
Mm.
It allowed you to stuff your deck with cards that you can keep in your opening hand and play on turn 1 and 2 and 3, but also be able to take all of those cards and like turn them into something valuable on turn 4,
Yeah, and
which
then
is
very swingy. Like
yes.
immediate value, things like Knife Juggler are really slick with it. You don't even need to have it out. You could just get it lucky and get Knife
Yeah,
Juggler. Or if you have a weapon, you get Sassy that can attack with it immediately.
right. Or Righteous Protector, which can force your
Oh
opponent to
my.
have bad attacks on the following turn.
Yeah, pulling Righteous Protector and any combination of other things is just unreal.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, right. Oh, Righteous Protector and any other two things is good.
if you get like something that's like sort of defenseless, like a Knife Juggler, and now it's not defenseless, so you got a Righteous Protector.
Right,
She's gonna righteously protect him.
right. And it's gonna make your Lost in the Jungles and everything else really good. So that deck is really strong. You rode that to Legend last season, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, what's good? Vicious Syndicate says this, and like nobody was really like playing it or prepared for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like steamrolled people.
Yeah, it was on like HS Replay for a while, and I think I agree. A lot of people were pretty weak to it, and they were trying to play like slow Warlock decks and stuff, and that deck just like completely punished those people.
Yeah,
Um,
I won through like you usually win before Void Lord, but
right.
like I won through Void Lord via Valanir a couple times, and that was
Mm.
always amazing. It was pretty much always like using Valanir to smush their the 1/3s, the Void Walkers,
Oh,
and then
sure.
once they're all out of the way, you play your 10 power Leroy Jenkins and kill them.
Yeah, I guess that would be the card you need to sort of push through Void Lord. I didn't have it and was not about to craft it, so I played the deck without that card, and I felt like as soon as Void Lord hit the be a field I needed to concede.
Yeah, well, it's probable that Spellbreaker would have been better. So if that's what you were using instead,
I was, yeah.
then yeah, then you were just in a better position than me. Because
I see.
when I had Valanir, I had to beat through it, and when you had your card, you're just like, nope, don't care.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, Spellbreaker has just continued to be awesome since Frozen Throne came out. But
I wouldn't have crafted Valanir. I opened it, and that's the only reason I ran it because I saw it on the
yeah,
internet. And it seemed fun, and I had it. But yeah, Spellbreaker is probably better.
Yeah, definitely.
After I did use it, and I took that Valinir to Legend, but
Right.
I feel like a Spellbreaker would have gotten me there faster, probably.
No, I feel that. So I was actually having some not so good luck with that deck. I brought it to like 3, and I kind of stalled out. I think I pushed to 2, and then fell back. And like, I realized that people were starting to account for the deck. Like, the VS report came out, and people were sort of adapting to the fact that that's one of the most powerful strategies around.
Hmm.
I'm actually surprised to see that as of today's report, it still is one of the most powerful strategies around. I'm shocked,
Yeah, me
but
too, honestly.
uh, but part of the reason I'm shocked is actually because how I started losing with the deck and what I did and how I got legend was my opponent. I was like, playing like my 20th game of the day or something. It was just like kind of burned out, and like on turn 1 my opponent played Firefly, and I just like my heart sank. And I was like, I realized like how weak is this deck? How fragile is it that like this Firefly has beaten me? Um, and so after I lost that game, I like uh went to my collection and crafted Tempo Rogue and like very easily got legend with it.
Yeah, see, I got to Legendary and was like, well, let me play a few more games of this deck. It's doing so well, and I was just like having no success. Like the moment I hit Legendary, Aggro Paladin stopped working for me. Um, and I'm not surprised that shortly after the same was true for other ranks.
Yeah, right, Kagura
And
one.
the only that was I basically just took your advice because you had said that you had gotten legendary with tempo rogues. Like that sounds like a good idea. So that was the only thing I was having any luck with.
Yeah. Yeah, the Tempo Rogue deck works really well. It's so I wanted to bring that up because I think Aggro Paladin is actually pretty fragile, and its dominance in the metagame is like I say, it's surprising. I think that there's a lot of ways that decks can beat it if they just respect it. And Tempo Rogue does such a good job of that because so many of the cards in your deck, including your hero power,
Hmm.
are excellent against Aggro Paladin. Like, I mean, like I said, I was ready to fold to a Firefly because not only do they have a 1/2 which could trade for like up to 2 of my minions, it could take away like maybe even 3 whole mana. The Flame Elemental could do the same thing. And I felt like I just couldn't beat that. And like the dagger in Rogue feels the same way. Like if you have like an Akros Veteran and a South Sea Deckhand and your opponent like daggers up, you're just like, wow, these cards are bad.
Yeah, these are gone.
Yeah, and it just feels horrendous. So I felt like that deck was super good, and it just kind of helped me learn how fragile Aggro Paladin is. But also, Tempo Rogue is a force. We see that in this week's report, and I think a lot of us have encountered it or been playing it on the ladder. It does pretty well against like Q Block, and
Yes.
yeah, Void Lord's something you really need to respect. That's a serious card, and Vile Spine is a decent way to deal with it. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's good.
There's not many perfect solutions because really, even silencing it's not that great because then they just cube it.
Right.
Beating
Yeah.
through it is actually a pretty good way, or just straight up murdering it is actually pretty great too. And not only can you Vile Spine, like often they're playing Void Lord into you with you have some minions out, so there's a good chance you'd be able to Bone Mare, and even that's a reasonable way to get through a Void Lord.
Oh yeah, just a huge dude. Totally. I mean, punching through the 3/9, like the 1/3s at that point in the game are usually like relatively easy to kill. They're just kind of slowing you down, which is the real reason they're so good. But punching through the 3/9 can be the hard part.
Yep, and but the deck still packs that burst with Leroy and Shadow Step, and um, can use Spellbreaker and things as well to try and get past um, top minions, and it has just so much damage early game, like turns 1 through 3. It just tears
Yeah,
stuff up.
yeah, it does a really good job. It's I mean, SI7 Agent, Vile Spine, these are all really good cards. Of course, Kelisith, it still gets free wins. That's really
And
strong.
Minstrel has been great for me.
Yeah, that was like it looked like a good card. I just wasn't sure if it would be because it looked like it was maybe too much work. But it turns out Shadow Step and Backstab and Coin just mean that you can play it on turn 3 or 4 a lot of the time.
Yeah, and a 3-2 isn't too small. 3-1 would obviously be a problem.
Yes.
But it can do some work, and your minions are so good. You can get Prince Calisith, you can get a Firefly, you can get a Swashbuckler, you can get a Bone Mare. You just get a bunch of good cards.
Yep. It even synergizes with Kalicith.
This is true.
Yeah, so that card's been really awesome. So actually, another deck that I played a lot of in the past like week or so, actually this season I played it exclusively up until today, was Miracle Rogue.
How's that been?
Um, I think it's gonna stop working soon if it hasn't already, but
Okay.
uh, it's been really fun because Sap is awesome against Void Lord.
Yeah, that is the true answer to that question.
Yeah. So I've been playing like a pretty low to the ground deck that is running that like tops out at Leroy Jenkins and is ultimately just trying to do sort of like trying to tango until turn 8 or 9 where I can have a miracle turn and then just like do a bunch of burst from hand. Falderai Strider has been awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, that card is really cool. It's just as good as it looked in Miracle Rogue. It means that when you do your miracle turn, you're not just drawing cards; you're actually converting your miracles to tempo, which is something that you like previously could not do very well.
Hmm.
You could remove a bunch of stuff, but now you can remove a bunch of stuff and get stuff on the board.
Yeah, all
Um,
the free cheaty stuff to do in Rogue was basically just clearing the board or drawing more cards that clear the board.
right. So that's been really good. Fan of Knives has been a great card with Aggro Paladin running around.
Yeah,
Um, I kind of felt like that would be the case, and it totally has
I
been.
can see that.
Uh,
And just general patches also increases its functionality.
Yeah, totally. It's running swashbucklers and patches. And Minstrel's been awesome in the deck. I mean, it just has so many ways to sort of gas back up, and Minstrel's also a really good card in a deck with like prep. Because you can like prep Minstrel and then play just some random spell from your hand, and you're happy to do that. And you're not that sad that like you spent basically 2 whole cards to cast one spell because you also drew 2 more cards in the process, and those are cards that like you can use to carry you to later turns.
Hmm. Wait, are you using
So
Auctioneer also?
Oh yeah, I'm using 2 auctioneers.
Okay.
It's auctioneer. I mean, it's a miracles deck. It like you basically it's an auctioneer deck. And auctioneer works really well with Falderai Strider. So
Good buds.
that's been fun. Yeah, I like that one. I've had some real silly games with it. You can really surprise your opponents with saps, and sap is just a very good card right now, where people are sort of investing. When people invest a lot of mana, it tends to go into like a large minion. They're not prepared for something like sap.
Yeah,
Sap
because
also owns Carnivorous Cube.
yeah. Oh man, that sounds excellent. Because there's not even
Yeah.
that much silence around nowadays,
Yeah, I mean, Spellbreaker's okay, but like we don't have an Iron Beak Owl.
or a Keeper of Silence, or
Yep,
Keeper of the Grove rather.
right. Keeper of 2 damage. Yeah, exactly. So that's fun, but I ultimately think like it gets run over a little too easily. I lost a bunch today to just like hunters,
Yeah, that does
and
sound.
that
The
was
minion decks are beating for Miracle Rogue usually.
yep, because you end up like you can beat them, but you end up having to spend a bunch of cards in the process. And if you just don't have the right half of your deck, if you just have the counterfeit coins and the preps, but no Fan of Knives and no Vile Spines and no SI agents, then like you're just not winning.
There is definitely a lot of priest around though, and
Yeah,
definitely got a good shot against that. And Warlock with its cubes. That deck is pretty absurd.
yeah, that's actually been one thing awesome about it is against Priest, like you can burst so hard that you can just play the tempo game and like tempo out your SI agents and just play 4 mana 4/4s and try to get as much damage as you can. And when they inevitably clear your board, you can swing it back later with just a ton of damage from hand with a charge minion and cold bloods or something, or Falderai Striders.
Yeah, your ability to burst and you just keep so much value in your hand, and they can't really do
Yeah,
anything about it. They're kind of counting on using removal spells to keep you from getting into a better position, but you can just assemble something really gross that they can't interact with.
yeah, totally. Yeah, maybe it's like maybe it'd be good in a tournament lineup if in the right lineup somewhere. Or maybe not. I don't really know, but it's I don't know if it's a good deck for the latter. I don't think it really is. It's definitely fun though. I mean, if you're looking to play Rogue but you don't want to play Tempo Rogue, play Miracles. It is fun. It's stronger than it was last season, even if it's not quite there.
And it seems pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Do you need Valera for it?
Oh no, I'm not running like the most expensive minion in the deck. Most expensive card in the deck is Auctioneer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not running Arcane Giants or Valera or Vanish or any secrets.
Cool. That sounds like the way to go to me.
Yeah, it's just a tempo-y kind of miracle build. It's really neat. It's I think it's like close to Mystery Goods build. But you can find that on the internet pretty easily. It's going to be on VS HS Replay, Twitter somewhere. But definitely like pretty neat.
And there's also Kingslayer Rogue. That deck seems pretty fun.
Oh, Kingsbane? Yeah.
Or Kingsbane, my bad.
Yeah, the Kingsbane mill deck. So stupid.
I mean, I have lost to it. It can be
Me too.
It can be pretty dumb. A big old lifesteal weapon and Doomerang. Oh my, that feels bad.
Yeah, it
that
does.
Doesn't feel good at all.
Why that card? Yeah, it can be humiliating because like your opponent plays Kingsbane or like Cavern Shiny Finder. You're like, okay, I can crush this guy. He's like helping me draw cards with Cold Light Oracle, and later in the game, you're like, how? He played a secret. How did I lose? Yeah, that's a pretty fun deck. I mean, there's definitely some meme worthy decks around right now, but I think all the best decks are just like Patches decks, Tempo Rogue, Aggro Paladin, probably like Razakis Priest.
Yeah, I'm sure Big Priest is still a reasonable pick.
Yeah, I mean it'll get free wins as long as Barnes is around,
And it's got a pretty good game against some of the other stuff you said, like Razakis Priest.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a bad deck. I mean, it's not all that fun to play or play against, but it's a good one.
I think it's pretty fun to play.
It's fun to play Barnes on turn 4 and then emote.
Yeah, that's the best.
Sometimes. But it's not like it's like a skill intensive deck. Like, do I coin the Barnes and play Eternal Servitude on curve or not? Like usually it's you just do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with the removal, it's basically like you got it or you don't. Like, do you have the potion in the Shadow Word horror or not?
Yeah, you pretty much just need it. But it's fun. Ultimately, I guess there's like a diversity of decks. The metagame's still evolving a little bit. Shaman is sadly just nowhere to be found.
Yeah, Shaman's pooped on. Hunter's not doing too great either.
No, neither is Warrior.
Best Warrior deck is still Pirate Warrior.
What a sad day.
It's pretty lame.
It is really lame. I mean, that Fiery Orax nerf has had a real resounding impact on that class.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they kind of thought the Bladed Gauntlet would be like, oh, this is a way to give Warrior 2-mana weapon, but only control slow Warrior, not face people. But it's just not quite good enough. It's not really a 2-mana weapon. You can't play it and attack with it.
Right. It's not a weapon you can play and attack with on turn 2 most of the time. And that makes it not. It makes it not a 2-mana weapon. It makes it not like fill the requirement or do what Fire Warax did. Not that it like needs to. There's more design space than just Fire Warax, but it's certainly not helping you keep minions off the board in early turns and play efficiently. It's not helping you get tempo. Those are the things that Fire Warax did, and this card is not doing that.
It should have also had Battlecry gain 2 armor.
That would have been actually great.
Then it'd be a really nice card.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm sure that Pirate Warrior would use it. Well, maybe not, but possibly.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because like you don't really want to upgrade that thing necessarily at that point.
Yeah, and Kel'Thuzad is kind of working for the deck.
Yeah,
but it would definitely be excellent for non-Pirate Warrior.
I'm sure they tested it. They must have tried out different formulations of that card, and it's like, and when you're designing a card game, it's so hard because like you don't have that much room to move. It's not like these cards can have like 500 attack, and you're like, well, actually, if we wanted to do this, we just make it 490 attack, and then it's good. Like, you're going from like 1 to 2 mana,
Yeah,
or
and
yeah,
you don't want to like clutter the text on your card either. And the
right,
card already does something pretty wonky.
right, yeah. So there's kind of a lot of reasons why you wouldn't necessarily design it like that, but it is a shame that Warrior's in the state that it's in, and so is Shaman.
I'm sure it'll get better.
Yeah, we'll see more support for the freeze mechanic for Shaman in the next expansion. Um, that'll be really good for everyone. Everyone will be really happy about that. We'll see more discard Warlock, and everyone will be really, really happy about that.
Self Blizzard. 6 mana, deal 2 damage to all your minions and freeze them, then kill yourself.
You lose 30 life. Yeah, that's what we have in store.
Can't wait.
Anyway, do you think that's a good place to wrap up?
Yeah, now that we've invented Self Blizzard.
Yeah, I think self Blizzard is the next thing for real Blizzard.
I think I gotta go. The thing I gotta mean Self Blizzard.
Yeah. So if you wanna find more gems, you can find us on twitter.com/LastTurnHS or facebook.com/LastTurnHS. As always, you can find our podcast on iTunes or YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play. Just look for Last Turn on any of these services. You'll find us. You can also find links to most or all of these on lastturnhs.com, where we'll also host the most recent episode. Definitely check that out. And yeah, have fun in the catacombs. Stay warm.
Yeah, do your best to keep your candle.
Yep. Be in charge. Play patches until he rotates.
And Happy New Year,
etc. Yeah, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Why not?
We'll catch you next turn.
See you next turn.